Tulio Siragusa, broadcasting from Los Angeles. And I'm joined today by Kim Lantis, who's our co-host in Hermosillo, Mexico, and Carlos Ponce, just outside of Mexico City. And today we have Yander Caceres, who's joining us as a special guest. Yander is out of Hermosillo as well. Are you in Mexico City? I don't remember where you are, but
No, I'm
please.
in Hermosillo.
Excellent. So we're recapping two shows from last week. The first show was with Shannon Hogue, who's the global head of solutions engineering at Carrot. And I got the name right this time. And the second show.
It's not karat.
I was like, it's not karat, it's Carrot. And and the second one was with Lachlan McDonald, who's a project leader at Boston Consulting Group. Two interesting topic of conversations. Shannon really leads this effort at Carrot about helping technology companies with the technical interview process. They actually provide professional interviewers to help identify good, talented software engineers. It's an interesting service they provide. And of course, Lachlan McDonald leads the procurement practice at Boston Consulting, which deals with how companies can best create scenarios for improving the process and the logistics for how they get equipment and things like that. What stood out for you guys? We have 10 minutes. We try to wrap this up in 10 minutes. What stood out for you guys from these two shows? Let's start the conversation.
Kim.
Sure. Well, I'll first talk about Shannon, if you don't mind. That's the show that I actually got to participate in. I really liked it a lot. I thought that, for one, Carrot, I really liked the energy. I liked the kind of company culture that they seem to have going, which I really appreciated. For me, a value that really stood out was empathy, right? Wanting to make sure that the interview process was a good experience, both for the interviewer and the interviewee, which unfortunately most of the time isn't really the case. She had some really great tips for us. I think one of the questions I asked was, how would you tell interviewers, how would you counsel them for those people who are actually raising their hands? And I think this went both for the interviewers as well as the company as a whole. And she had some really great tips. For one, she said the first thing you need to do is actually give interviewing an owner, right? Have some accountability, have some consistency there, as well as providing them with the resources that they need to do their job well. She mentioned auditing interviews, right? Be creative in the way that you might be able to do that. But everybody enjoys feedback, right? And the more feedback we can give, the better the process will be. One of the things that really stood out for me is she mentioned that her company gives people time. So a lot of times the approach is, work your 40 hours and then, hey, do this extra thing too. And she mentioned that she actually allots, and it's understood that at her company, people are given 10% of their time, 10% of their hours work week to learn a new skill. So whether that's 4 hours paid, 2 hours paid, that's the approach. And I thought that was really great as well. And then she talked about, having people set milestones, having people set goals, which helps us do our jobs better, to realize that we're actually progressing, whether I think that's with interviewing or anything else. But I really did enjoy that talk a lot.
Yander, I know you've done several technical interviews in your career and trying to find good software engineers. What was that like for you in terms of hearing what they do and their approach to this? Any ideas as a practitioner? Any tips or things that stood out for you?
Yeah, I think everything is related, and based on what Kim was saying right now, and there are a couple of other things that I heard on the interview, and I really liked it. Is one of the first things that she said is the interview changes people's lives, and you should also focus on the candidate experience. So I think the only way to do that is, and based on another thing she said, one of the path to achieve that is to help the candidates choose themselves, right? By following certain rules and consistent expectations. And the way to do that is just learning new skills as an interviewer, right? And give the people some time to training, and don't from the company perspective, as we as nearshore, you shouldn't see it as a secondary work, right? And I think that's really important for the quality of the interviews and your process for recruitment.
And going back to what you're saying about the candidate experience, the idea isn't to zing the candidates, right? The interviewees. It's to actually, the more helpful you can be as an interviewer, the more empathetic, the more structure and guide that you can give is the opportunity to allow the candidate to show their true selves, which I think is something that maybe a lot of times we get wrong, right? We try to trip people up when that's really not the best approach.
Yeah, interesting. Good observation, guys. Carlos, what about the show with Lachlan? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I have to confess that I'm a little bit agnostic on in all things data, but I mean I have basic knowledge, basic grasp of the whole thing. But one of the things that stood out for me was the way that Lachlan, how can I say this in a coherent manner, is that his inventiveness, how he used his inventive capabilities to provide a significant solution for such challenging environments like the supply chain of mining, oil, gas, and anything that has involved not beyond the software or the soft side of this, and just make it something tangible and bring it into the real world, quote unquote. Because I think it requires a special skill to see the whole picture and envision how your work and your capabilities to come up with a creative solution can provide tangible solutions for some tangible items like commodities. So I guess that's what definitely stood out for me, Tulio.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show too that even though it's 2020 and we live in a fairly technologically advanced world, there are still some solutions that are not digitized. There are still a lot of manual processes that go into running a business, and it's mind-blowing that that's still the case. But there's opportunities across many industries, across multiple initiatives, including procurement and supply chain, to make improvements and to, in some cases, try to standardize how these companies communicate with each other. And the retail EDI did that many, many moons ago. But when it comes to procurement supply chain, there's a gap there. There's still a big gap. And it's like, that shouldn't exist. Maybe there's an opportunity to fix that at some point. So we're coming up on time. Anything else stood out for you guys? We got about 1.5 minutes before we wrap up.
Well, watching the show with Lachlan, it stuck out that the data's there, and he mentioned what we have to do is figure out how to triangulate it, right? Suppliers, I know what I need, you know what you have, you know where it is, but I don't know where it is. And so to be able to triangulate that and get the communication figured out, which sounds like it should be simple, apparently it's not.
The challenge is there's no standardized way for all companies to communicate that data. It's all proprietary. So like EDI solved that in retail because everybody's using a similar way to communicate with SKU numbers and so on. So it's a big challenge, which could potentially be solved by a company that comes up with an exchange. Who knows? Hint, hint. That's an opportunity for whoever's listening.
Not just logistically, but what that might mean even ecologically, right?
Exactly.
In terms of fuel consumption and whatever.
Excellent. Well, we're up on time. What do we got coming up this week, Carlos?
Sure. Tuesday, tomorrow, we're going to be speaking about delivering smarter translation with Danny May from Lingmo. And on Thursday, we have Powering Business with People Motivation with Manoj Agarwal from Show Day. And again, we're covering the whole globe because our guests are in Australia and in India, so we're going to keep them awake for a little while. So that's what we have for this week, Tulio, here on Dojo Live, 1 p.m.
Well, it sounds like we're reaching all corners of the earth here on Dojo Live. So join us at 1 p.m. Pacific. I think that might be something like 1 a.m. or 1:30 a.m. in India. I'm not exactly sure, but 1 p.m. Pacific. See you again soon on Dojo Live. Thanks for joining us, and until then, stay safe.
Thanks, Yander.